I saw the other day with Alex Eala, yeah, that's been a talk, and which is understandable. There's some players coming from respective countries, like she's coming from Philippines, which is now a big deal. She's been the biggest ever, tennis player from that country, which is a big country, and there's a big interest. So things like that happen. I mean, it's you could argue that it was, maybe a poor schedule, and maybe they could schedule him on a bigger court. Yes, but again, she's so young and she's just coming through. So, and obviously the first couple of rounds, the schedule is so packed. The big courts with big names, it's difficult. It's not easy to manage that. But again, it's a good problem to have, to be honest.
This was definitely one of the bigger Filipino turnouts. Also New York was huge. It was tough because it also depends what court you're on, that you feel the noise and things. I would say the top two so far have been Melbourne and New York. Yeah.
Right now at the Australian Open, something absolutely wild is happening that nobody saw coming. Aryna Sabalenka is sitting there as the defending champion playing lights-out tennis, and she's basically become invisible. Meanwhile, Eala, this 20-year-old from the Philippines who had to qualify just to get into the tournament, is creating scenes that look more like a rock concert than a tennis match. We're talking about 5,000 people showing up to watch her on a court that fits maybe. The world #1 is getting upstaged by someone ranked outside the top 100, and the numbers don't lie. So, here's the question everyone's asking. Is Eala's popularity surge the real deal? Or are we just seeing Filipino community support creating a temporary moment that'll fade away? Drop your thoughts below, because what's happening in Melbourne right now has never been seen before in modern tennis. We've got a 20-year-old qualifier from the Philippines generating more attention, more crowd energy, and more media coverage than the defending Australian Open champion and world #1. This isn't opinion or hype. The attendance figures, viewership data, and social media metrics all confirm it. Something fundamental just shifted in tennis.
I mean, she played an incredible match, and I tried my very best. I was fighting till the very last point. I had my opportunities. Feels like I missed couple, but I mean, it's tennis, Today you're a loser, tomorrow you're a winner. So hopefully I'll be more of a winner this season than a loser. So hoping right now and praying.
Thank you.
Picture this scene and tell me it's not completely backwards. Sabalenka is out there on center court with perfect scheduling and prime broadcast slots, absolutely destroying opponents with that trademark power game of hers. She's hitting aces and crushing ground strokes exactly like a world #1 should. And she's doing all of this in front of scattered crowds with empty seats that everyone can see on TV. Now flip to the outer courts, where Eala is playing on these small venues designed for early round matches, and there are so many fans showing up that security had to call for backup because people are literally climbing fences and trash cans just to get a view. Tournament directors confirmed that when Eala was scheduled for Court 6, which normally holds about 1,500 people, over 5,000 fans showed up. They couldn't fit. The facility was completely overwhelmed. Security logs show they exceeded fire safety limits by people were hanging from fences, screaming support like this was a World Cup match, not a polite tennis tournament. And here's the part that has to sting the most for Sabalenka. While she was playing a televised match on center court, Eala was just doing warm-up drills on court. Not even a real match, just practice shots. The viewership data from Southeast Asia and the Pacific showed that 40% more people were watching Eala's warm-ups than Sabalenka's actual competitive match. Think about that for a second. Practice drills pulled higher viewership than the defending champion's match. That single statistic sent advertisers and tournament organizers into complete panic mode. because it signals something huge. A fundamental shift in who actually drives tennis viewership. It's not necessarily the player with the best results or highest ranking anymore, it's whoever connects emotionally with massive demographics that previously didn't care about tennis. The contrast in how these two players are being treated is honestly brutal to watch. Sabalenka walks into press conferences and gets asked about Eala's fan base instead of her own performance. She's giving technically perfect answers about her game, and reporters are basically ignoring her to ask follow-up questions about the Filipino phenomenon happening on the outer courts. That has to mess with your head psychologically. You're the world number one. You're the defending champion. You're playing some of the best tennis of your life, and you're being treated like a supporting character in someone else's movie. The Queen is watching the crown slip away in real time, and there's absolutely nothing she can do about it because this isn't really about tennis quality anymore. It's about cultural connection and emotional investment. The Melbourne Park grounds look completely different this year. Normally at Grand Slams you see flags from dozens of countries scattered throughout the crowds. Right now it's an ocean of red, blue, and yellow. Filipino flags everywhere you look. The chanting is so loud it drowns out the PA system on courts next door. The atmosphere feels more like a Davis Cup tie where national pride is on the line rather than an individual tournament. Sabalenka represents peak tennis excellence. She's this physical marvel who plays with ruthless efficiency, but from a fan perspective she's somewhat cold and distant. Her game is so perfect it becomes predictable. Viewers know she's probably gonna win, so there's no real suspense or drama. Eala represents the complete opposite of that. She's the underdog fighting against physical disadvantages every single match. She's significantly smaller than most opponents, so she has to compensate with tactical brilliance and those defensive skills she learned at the Rafael Nadal Academy. Every rally feels like a survival scenario. Every win feels like an upset waiting to happen. The drama is automatically built into her matches because nobody expects her to win, which makes every victory feel that much bigger. Beyond just the tennis itself, Eala carries symbolic weight that Sabalenka simply can't match. For millions of people across Southeast Asia and specifically the Philippines, Eala represents proof that their people deserve a spotlight on the global stage. She's not just a tennis player competing for ranking points. She's a cultural ambassador, demonstrating that you can rise from a developing nation with minimal tennis infrastructure and compete with the absolute elite. Sabalenka fights for trophies and ranking points. Eala fights for representation and national pride. That emotional gap is exactly why the popularity scales have tipped so dramatically in her favor. When Sabalenka hits an ace, she gets polite applause. When Eala hits a winner, people are literally brought to tears. The emotional investment is on completely different level. The nickname that's emerged around Eala, the Era, is particularly significant if you understand what it represents. It started as just a hashtag, a social media trend that fans used to celebrate her matches. But it's evolved into something much bigger than that. It's now a declaration that Philippine tennis has permanently arrived on the global stage. Before Eala, Southeast Asian players would make occasional appearances at majors and then disappear back into obscurity. The nickname suggests this time is fundamentally different. This is the beginning of sustained excellence, not just a temporary flash in the pan. That terrifies traditional tennis powers in Europe and America because it signals a demographic shift that could reshape the entire sport. If Eala triggers the same kind of cultural explosion that Tiger Woods created in golf or Serena Williams created for black athletes in tennis, the entire business model changes overnight. New markets open up, new sponsors appear, and the power structure shifts toward Asia in a major way. The financial implications are already becoming visible if you know where to look. Reports are confirming that Nike, Adidas, and Wilson are in serious bidding wars for Eala's endorsement deals. They recognize that signing her isn't just about one individual athlete. It's about accessing an entire corner of the globe that previously didn't engage with tennis at all. The potential revenue from capturing the Filipino market and broader Southeast Asian demographics is absolutely astronomical. Meanwhile, Sabalenka already has her endorsement deals locked in and secured. She's financially stable and set, but she's watching companies throw bigger money at a lower-ranked player because that player has something she doesn't have. Global reach that transcends the sport itself and connects with cultures on a deeper level. The tactical evolution in Eala's game is also worth noting because it proves this isn't just empty hype built on nationalism and cultural pride. She's actually good enough to justify all this attention from a pure tennis perspective. Her serve, which was a major weakness when she was a teenager, has developed into a legitimate weapon. She uses her left-handed slice serve to pull opponents wide and create angles, very similar to how Rafael Nadal dominated opponents with his serve patterns for years. But the biggest improvement has been mental toughness and composure under pressure. In a recent match against a higher-seeded American opponent, Eala lost the first set badly and looked completely outmatched. The old version of her probably would have collapsed mentally and lost in straight sets. Instead, she steadied herself, used the crowd energy to fuel a comeback, and won in 3 sets. That kind of mental fortitude is what separates players who have potential from players who actually achieve sustained success at the highest level. Sabalenka has admitted in interviews that she struggles when crowds turn hostile and that negative energy affects her performance. Eala is the exact opposite. She feeds on chaos and pressure. The louder and more intense the crowd gets, the better she seems to play. That's an intangible advantage that can't be replicated through training or coaching. It's personality-based, and it gives her a weapon that rankings and statistics don't capture or measure. The economic impact on Melbourne has been quantified at approximately $15 million in additional tourism revenue over just 2 weeks. Fans are flying in from Singapore, Jakarta, Hong Kong, and throughout Southeast Asia specifically to watch Eala play. They're not coming for the tournament in general. They're coming specifically for her. That's the textbook definition of a cultural phenomenon rather than just a sports story. The reports coming out of Manila are even more dramatic and telling. When Eala plays her matches, traffic in the capital literally disappears. Corporate productivity drops to essentially zero. Schools cancel regular classes to project the matches for students to watch together. This is the same level of national obsession that the Philippines demonstrated for Manny Pacquiao during his boxing prime. But here's the thing that makes it even more remarkable. Tennis has virtually zero cultural roots in the Philippines compared to boxing or basketball. The fact that Eala is generating this kind of response for what's essentially a foreign sport shows just how powerful her symbolic importance has become to the Filipino people. Sabalenka has to be processing all of this and wondering how she became essentially irrelevant at a tournament she's completely dominating from a tennis perspective. She's playing objectively better tennis than Eala. Her results are superior across every metric. Her ranking is higher by almost 100 spots. And absolutely none of that matters right now because popularity and cultural impact aren't determined by who plays better tennis. They're determined by who connects with audiences on an emotional level and represents something bigger than themselves. That press conference incident where reporters asked Sabalenka about Eala's fan base instead of her own performance was particularly brutal to witness. She smiled and answered professionally like the consummate champion she is. But you could see the frustration and confusion in her eyes. She's there to discuss her path to potentially another championship, her preparation, her mindset. And nobody in that room cares because they're all completely obsessed with the Filipino qualifier playing on outer courts, who might not even make it past the next round. That's a psychological blow that has to be incredibly difficult to process and overcome. It forces you to confront the harsh reality that being the best player in the world doesn't automatically make you the most important or relevant player culturally. The historical comparisons to previous cultural shifts in tennis are really instructive here. When Serena Williams first emerged and started dominating, she brought massive new audiences to the sport who had never cared about tennis before. When Maria Sharapova became famous, she opened up Russian markets and made tennis appealing to younger demographics globally. When Lena started winning Grand Slams for China, the entire business model of professional tennis had to change to accommodate Asian markets and scheduling. Eala appears to be triggering that exact same kind of seismic shift, but specifically for Southeast Asia and the Filipino diaspora spread across the globe. Wherever there are Filipino communities worldwide, Eala now has built-in fan bases that will show up and create atmospheres exactly like what we witnessed in Melbourne. That's a competitive advantage and cultural platform that will last for her entire career, regardless of her ranking. The big question everyone's trying to answer is whether this surge is sustainable long-term or just a temporary spike based on novelty and the excitement of seeing someone new break through. The nickname The Era suggests her fans believe this is permanent and transformational. The massive investment from major sponsors suggests corporations and their market research teams believe it's permanent. The infrastructure changes being discussed by tennis authorities to accommodate larger crowds for her matches suggests everyone in the sport is preparing for this to be the new normal rather than a temporary anomaly. Sabalenka is probably hoping deep down that this is just a temporary moment and that once Eala loses a few matches or gets injured, everything will revert back to the normal hierarchy where rankings and results matter most. But tennis history suggests that's probably wishful thinking on her part. Once a demographic starts caring about a sport because of one breakthrough player, they tend to stay engaged even after that original player is gone or retires. Serena Williams brought fans to tennis who now watch and support other players. Tiger Woods brought viewers to golf who still tune in regularly even though he's not competing at his peak level. The cultural shift that Eala is creating will likely outlast her individual career and create a permanent pipeline of interest from Southeast Asian markets. Here's the final twist that probably keeps Sabalenka up at night. Eala doesn't even have to win this tournament to cement this entire narrative permanently. If she loses her next match tomorrow, it doesn't change or diminish what's already happened over these 2 weeks. She's already proven beyond any doubt that she can command global attention and generate economic impact that completely eclipses the defending champion and world #1. That's a permanent shift in the tennis hierarchy and cultural landscape that can't be undone or reversed. Sabalenka might lift the trophy at the end of this tournament. She might add another Grand Slam title to her already impressive resume and further cement her legacy as one of the great champions. But Eala walks away from Melbourne knowing she can bring the world to a complete standstill and create cultural moments that transcend sports entirely. That's a different kind of power and influence that rankings and trophies simply don't capture or measure. Aryna Sabalenka just got completely eclipsed by a 20-year-old qualifier who generated more buzz, bigger crowds, and higher viewership despite being ranked nearly 100 spots lower. The Australian Open now officially belongs to Alex Eala in every way that actually matters, regardless of who ends up holding the physical trophy. Star power and cultural connection just prove they matter infinitely more than rankings or technical excellence, and Sabalenka is learning that lesson in the most public and humbling way possible.